As a guy, you don't get the free ride in the fancy car. As a female, you absolutely do. Guys need to be prepared for these harsh realities, and it's nothing to complain about. It just is what it is. Just as you have some great advantages, like you don't have a menstruation you got to deal with. You don't have to carry a child for 9 months. You don't have to walk down an alley and wonder if something's going to happen to you. Those are your advantages. Right. And then you also have some responsibilities that go with that. And we should be pleased to be men and know that we can rise to the occasion to perform at a high level as men.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the From Boys to Men show, brought to you by the Squire Program. Today I got a really special guest with me today. And by the way, let me just say this because he's here. Peace to the saints.
Peace to the saints.
I'm telling you, shout out, man. Shout out. This is somebody that I looked up to for a really long time. I have a hopefully a good friend of mine moving forward with me today. Marquett, Davon, Burton. How you doing, man? Welcome to the show.
Well, I appreciate you having me. Very proud of the work that you guys are doing, and the swag is amazing. I do need one of those hats. You heard me?
I appreciate it. I got you. We got you locked in for sure, man. So, I kind of talked to you a little bit before we got started about what the Squire Program is, what we're trying to do here, our goal of trying to help make men better, especially between fathers and sons and building that relationship. But even if you don't have your father in your life, trying to help guide them, give them the information, give them the game to help them become better, leaders in the future, right? So I talked to you about that a little bit before, but I want to first ask you to introduce yourself a little bit more about what you do for the people that may not know you, just a little bit, just to let them know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, my name is Marquett Davon Burton, grew up in Los Angeles, and my background has been in technology, which I'm very fortunate because you got the best profit margins in technology. And what I teach above everything is product-based business. Prosperity, it turns out that's a great foundation for all the things you want in life, especially as a man. And this leads me often to talking about what is manhood, what is it to be a man in this era. A man, first and foremost, is a leader. And in business, as a founder and CEO, a lot of what I've had to do is leadership. So those are the two lanes that I'm often talking about. And it usually boils down to three concepts: health, wealth, and relationships. And between those three things, you can really go through a universe of topics, but that's really what I specialize in is health, wealth, and relationships.
Right on. And so I want to get into that in just a second, but I want to I guess partly give a shout out to the Black Box. Obviously, you're an author as well. So shout out to the Black Box. You can get that on Amazon and on your website as well, right?
Yeah, you get a low cost ebook there.
Awesome. So one specific chapter, the whole book is amazing, but there's one specific chapter story that you recalled in the book, and it was about Trey. Right now, I want you to explain a little bit more about who Trey was. Who was he in your life? Because I know that there's a lot of people that are watching that, the whole father and son thing is awesome, but maybe they're like me, or maybe they're like you, where they didn't have their father in their life directly to them, where they're just accessible, or, even if they were,
sure,
are they the best example of what a man is? And so, I want you to kind of explain who Trey was in your life, because it might be relatable just for the people watching at home.
Certainly. And the great thing about Trey is that he exemplifies the fact that you don't have to be way ahead of someone to be a mentor or a teacher or a guide. And you're right. What we're looking for often is someone to just show us what are the next couple steps that we need to utilize to move forward. And Trey in many ways was similar to a father figure, the closest thing I had. So in my neighborhood, Trey basically was the son of my mother's friend.
Got it.
He was the son of my mother's friend. He was a couple years older than I was. He's 13, 14. And he was also a drug dealer too. In fact, in retrospect, I'm like, did Trey even go to school? Because I don't ever recall Trey going to school.
I don't know.
But, he was there for my first fight. He was literally there behind me, coaching me, telling me what to do. And when I took that first black eye, he was there as well. And for some of those formative experiences that you would hope you would have someone there for, especially a father, and he gave me that masculine guidance. And, when I felt like I was falling apart, he was there to tell me, you're not done, stay strong, carry on. And those are some of the core things that build us. And I'm fortunate that I was able to have those things built in my youth.
Right.
And some of us were still building it, in adolescence, in our university years and more, but it's never too late is the key. And also you sometimes just need that person who's a couple steps ahead of you. And the most important piece is that, as you had mentioned, fathers are critical. We all know that. All the data indicates that. but there are also other influences that are going to, take hold of us in our lives, whether it's music or our neighbors or the persons at school. And so Trey's one good example of one of those other influences, and we want to have as many of those be positive as possible. But yeah, Trey was kind of like my young father at that time.
Right. I want to ask you why you think that is. Why do you think that is that young men, I guess it could maybe be the case as well for young women as well, but I really particularly feel that this is the plight of a young man, especially if he doesn't have a masculine role model in his life. We look for it elsewhere. If our dad's not there, we're going to look for it somewhere else. If we don't have an older brother, we'll look for him somewhere else, whether that be one of the dads on the block that's, just a neighborhood dad, or maybe that's in way of gangs, but we're always looking for a tribe to belong to or someone to follow and aspire to be more like. Why do you feel that is for young men? Why do you feel like that's an important role for a stage, I guess I should say?
Well, human beings really know nothing unless they're taught through education or they're conditioned and trained. We're not like the lower animals where a bird might know how to fly south for the winter or wherever they go. Or as human beings, everything we know, we pretty much had to learn through direct education, training, or enculturation. And when you look at the male versus the female, there's one thing that's really notable is that males kind of grow up in groups and teams. So you can actually understand the male through their forms of play in youth. When you look at girls, they engage in games that are usually like one-on-one, like playing house or playing dolls or hopscotch, fairly simple games that don't require significant organization. And most importantly, there's no winner. Well, how do you win at dolls? You don't.
Right.
It's not about winning. It's about the social interaction and bonding, generally on a smaller scale. Boys grow up playing team sports, basketball, football. There's hierarchy, there's positions, there's large scale organization, and there's definitely a winner and a loser. And you mentioned tribe. Tribe is the same thing as this team. So boys are at a greater level seeking a sense of belonging. They want to belong. They want to know, where do I fit in the hierarchy? And in many cases, how do I move up in the hierarchy and how do I win? And to learn how to win, that's a process. Like, for example, in my city I live in right now, they have the NBA Summer League. All these giant guys. Some of them are my size, though, right? I was on an elevator going up with some of these guys, and there's a groupie on there. And she's like, "What team do you play for?" I was like, "Shorty, nah, I don't play hoop." And a part of the reason that I didn't get to play at a professional level is because I didn't have a father. It's not because I didn't have the physical attributes, the height, the speed, the strength. I had all of those.
Right.
I was excelling in every sport I stepped into. But had I had a father who taught me how to win at that level and how to perform at that level, I'd be there. There's no doubt.
Right.
Fathers are critical in that process, but the team is also critical, and knowing how to operate within a team is important. I learned a lot of these things later in life. So when you say, why do boys look for that? Because you don't inherently know how to operate within a team. One of my important experiences, which I wrote about in the Black Box, was in a fraternity. I got like kind of tricked into pledging a fraternity. I ended up creating one myself, which was very successful and still exists today. But while I was pledging, as a kid who was high performing just naturally, so I was a natural star, if you will, but I didn't know how to operate within a team.
Right.
There's this one physical challenge we had to do, which was easy for me, but it was harder for some of the other members of the team. We often hear this term alpha male. We think that's like the top dog, the dominant one, but it's also the guy who takes care of the team. The team captain. So while I did the challenge, I'm looking at my teammates like, bro, come on, man, hurry up, man. We come on, man, it's getting late. We got classes tomorrow. Like, I'm not helping him out. A proper father and a coach would have put that quality in me, as much as he said, as much as you need to know how to shoot the 3 ball and make the basket, you got to actually make your teammates better and help them make the basket as well. That's a part of teams. That's a part of tribe. And here's the funny thing. Being the best player on the team doesn't make the team like you.
Right.
That's why a lot of people got bad things to say about Michael Jordan. We heard that in the documentary.
All the time.
Now, if you can figure out how you make the basket, how your team members make the basket, and they all feel included and they want to be included under your leadership, you're a bad man. Tribe, father, all those things are involved in knowing how to operate. So I think that's why young men are looking for that, because that's how we play. And not only do we play like that in sports in a literal sense, that team mentality and that form of play also exists in corporate.
For sure.
When you come into corporate, there's hierarchy, there's position, there's team, there's winning.
You gotta know your position, for sure. I want to take you back just a second. There's one thing you said. It was the fact that you had all the qualities. You could have been a star. Exactly. So
I'm still mad. I'm still mad,
exactly.
Bro.
See, but it's crazy you say that, because as you were saying that, I've had this conversation with other people before. I believe that I fell into skateboarding because my dad wasn't there. I think, and I'm grateful now because I grew up skateboarding. That made me want to work at my first job was at a skate shop, who I met my now wife of 7 years.
Congratulations.
And thank you. We have 2 beautiful daughters. We have a boy on the way. So I have my family, and that came from, you know, me being into skating, and then it kind of, you know, domino effect of different things, right? Different events. So I'm grateful that it went this way. However, I think about if my dad had been home, if he wasn't locked up, I probably would have been into baseball and playing basketball or whatever, and then my life would have been different, right?
Yes.
But I don't know if it's a healthy way to look at life. If I'm like, well, what if this? What if that? Right? I want to ask you, how did you not having that male role model there, your father there, obviously in different parts, right, in different stages? How do you feel that affected you besides sports, of course, like maybe on a mental or emotional level? Like, what other areas do you feel that really affected you on it, and why?
Well, my good fortune is that I had my uncle in my life, and my uncle had a proper nuclear family, and I went and spent the weekend with his household every other weekend. And one thing we often overestimate is the actual amount of time that a father or father figure has to be in the child's life. I think this is wildly overestimated, and it's typically because in our society we confuse the male and the female role. The female is proximate to the child. She breastfeeds the child. She got to be there, immediately accessible, especially in those early years. Whereas the father needs to provide the example and the discipline and the guidance and the values, but he doesn't have to be so close hands-on. I think with my uncle, I got enough of what I needed. So that was great. Also for my father, I got enough counter examples. And one thing I've been fortunate about is that I was raised by Southerners. So they taught me to be polite, respect your elders, respect hierarchy, stay in a child's place, this kind of thing, right?
For sure.
They told you the right thing and you follow it. And one of the things that I observed very young is, okay, so my father's in prison. He's obviously screwed up in some way. So I can't even learn from my father how to be a good drug dealer. He ain't even good at that. He in prison for that. And my mother was using drugs, and she had, done some time and come out for that. So obviously drugs are bad. So I'm seeing these counter examples, and I obeyed what not to do as much as I would have obeyed what to do if they were there to say, do this. So I think that was a critical piece. Now, in terms of, how was my life perhaps different as a result? I think that it was just different in as much as like those instances wherein, you would have been more prone to do what your father thought was a good sport because, if your father liked basketball, he'd add you on the basketball team. Right. So in as much as he wasn't there, you gravitated towards skating, and that's who you are today. The most important thing is, especially in success, is being able to say what happened yesterday doesn't really matter today, whether it was good or bad, whether it was a win or a loss. And that's one of the most important things I think that males today have trouble with, and that's because they lack emotional intelligence. And that's the ability to acknowledge the truth, to deal with a harsh reality, to identify where I am today and where I need to get tomorrow, and have the wherewithal and strength of character to chart that course and walk down that path no matter how tough it becomes. So father or no father, you're going to get where you're going if you want to be there. Certainly it's a lot easier when you have that male figure behind you, because what happens is there's a level of confidence and seriousness that they give you. Like, for example, my Uncle Jimmy, now I don't know if, because obviously at some level we share DNA, but he obviously had his own actual son of his flesh and blood, but treated me the same. We go out, people think I'm actually his son. I actually look like him more than his own son, which is comedy. But a couple things I observed about Uncle Jimmy is that he's serious. If he needs to get something done, at the moment that he's zeroing in on that goal, nothing else matters. He's extremely serious, and he can even be serious to the point of insensitivity. His wife, Leslie, on the other hand, is very jovial, loving. Winning doesn't matter. Everyone needs to be happy. Do you feel comfortable? Are you good? Do we need to change the AC? Are you hungry? Uncle Jimmy didn't care none of that. And what I learned from him being there is, one, you need to be serious about what you're pursuing. Number two, a good woman is a great help and a great balance to a man. I also observed how the male and female interact in a healthy way and in a hierarchical way. I mean, there was one time, you may have read in my book, that my cousin Anthony, his son, passed gas at the dinner table. Uncle Jimmy sent everybody to bed, including his wife, because she was laughing too. Like, Anthony started cracking up. I'm trying to hold it in. Aunt Leslie started laughing. I started laughing. Uncle Jimmy sent everybody to bed.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap because he said so. There's no one talked about it. No one questioned it. It was done. He said, go to bed. Everybody went to bed. And it taught me a lot about being serious about hierarchy and also about being an honorable man. You know, people ain't question Uncle Jimmy because he's the boss. Like, no one was wondering who the boss was. It was very clear. He wasn't the boss because he was a tyrant. And so there's a lot of lessons there just in the observation piece. And it's a real privilege to be around a real man, but increasingly there are fewer.
Let me ask you this, because that's a good point. Your uncle obviously did something. He exhibited some kind of quality to where the respect was there. He didn't have to ask for it. He didn't have to, put his, smack the hammer down. Like, they already knew.
Right.
He just walked in the room. They probably just, chill out. Hey, let's not joke about that anymore. Right. I don't believe that many men, have that in their life, right? They don't have that presence where they enter their household and then the energy changes. Not in a bad way, like you said, not meaning to be a tyrant, but you have to understand that you being the really, I don't even like saying the head of the household, the foundation, right? You're supposed to be the foundation of the household. When you walk in the room, the energy is supposed to shift, right? If then it happens with me and my wife all the time, where I can hear her talking to my daughter upstairs, telling her not to do something, and she's still, why, whatever. And I come up there, I don't even have to do anything. I just say, hey, say, okay, I'll do it. It's automatic.
Right.
I don't believe that a lot of men have that. So what do you think is going on right now with just society in general at large when it comes to men not really having that respect? Because at the end of the day, I think 90% of men would prefer respect over love. They want both, but we want to be respected. Why do you feel like a lot of men nowadays are not getting that respect that they feel they deserve?
There are a number of factors. One unique perspective that I have on it, having had the privilege of being a sixth grade teacher, which was I don't know how I ever ended up teaching because I didn't like school. But I ended up being a sixth grade teacher. I did this program called Teach for America, and I was teaching kids in Baltimore, Maryland, which is one of the worst places to live and go to school in many ways. And the first thing that became very clear is that schooling, especially primary schooling, is organized according to female nature, behavior, and instincts. So it turns out, even though men today might not feel this way, but females are actually quite good at following directions. Males are not so good at following directions. Females are agreeable by nature. Males are more inclined to being disagreeable. Females tend to be able to sit still and comply, whereas males tend to be more tactile. They want to touch, they want to get up, they want to be physical. And this makes perfect sense. Look at the difference in body between the female body and the male body. Our bodies are designed for combat and warfare. That's why we excel in sport. That's why we intelligently have separated the leagues, because they couldn't compete physically. We have a natural advantage there. In as much as that's the case, and that's what we're tooled for, primary school, kindergarten through 8th grade is all about sit down, don't get up without permission, raise your hand if you have something to say. If you need to go to the bathroom, you need to get permission, raise your hand. So it's all about submission, follow the rules, be quiet, comply. And women have a unique ability to do that. Furthermore, it's more heavily focused on language and language understanding. And females develop language skills earlier in life, where males develop math skills earlier in life, which are not necessarily as useful in primary school because you're not using the complex subjects like, say, chemistry, which is heavily reliant on mathematical foundations. Anyways, the girl has the advantage early in schooling, and that actually gets locked in over time. That's why today we see much higher college attendance for females. I say all this to say, when you put a boy into primary school, you're actually trying to teach him and condition him to behave like a female. To comply, to submit, to follow directions, to be agreeable, to not question. It's ironic. Education, you think, is all about questioning, but it's actually not so much about questioning, because if you watch, you can only raise your hand when the floor is open for questions. When you have permission. You can't question everything. You can question when you're allowed to question. And that's actually not boy nature. And boys are going to learn better and perform better when you have performance activities. Your learning is partly physical. You have expeditionary learning, which is what I focused on. So they're being conditioned to be females. That's one thing. Then secondly, if you look at requirements around physical education or the inclination of the boy to go outside and play, much less in this era. Whereas previously you go knock on the neighbor's door, hey, can so-and-so come out and play? And you want to go out and play basketball or football or skates, boards, whatever you want to do, it's outside and it's physical. Whereas now with these high obesity rates, you go knock on the door like, hey, you want to play the game? And then you guys get on the sticks and you guys are hunched over, or you're on the computer hunched over, and you spend all of this time doing things that are chiefly not male. Right. You remember earlier I mentioned teams. Well, when you look at the girl games, playing dolls, where do you play dolls? In the house.
Right.
Where do you play basketball? Outside. So you're operating in a mode that is actually chiefly female increasingly. You're becoming less physical, less tactile, less aggressive, and you're not even expressing aggression. And here's the meaningful thing about how boys engage in sport and games. Well, most of our sport and games, you're going against one another. Right. And it's important for us to bump heads and be aggressive.
It's crucial.
Now we don't even know how to engage in conflict. We're scared of conflict. We're conflict avoidant, which is strange because we're aggressive animals. Right. And now because we've not had the practice, sport gives us practice at how to engage in conflict. And you know what the beautiful thing is about sport? If we're boxing, I'm trying to knock you out for that 3 minutes, that round. I'm trying to knock you out and you're trying to knock me out too.
Right.
Ding, ding, it's over. We can shake hands.
Exactly.
We can be cool.
Yeah.
There's a huge level of emotional control and training that goes into our ability to try to kill each other during these minutes, but when they're over, we can hug.
That's how it goes.
And be men.
Yeah. But the thing is, nowadays, I don't mean to cut you off, but just to add to your point, is nowadays you don't really see that happening. Like if you shoot the fade, so somebody win or lose or whatever, the person who lose is gonna run to his backpack and it's gonna get aired out, and it's a whole different story. But you can't have that shake hand moment like it should have been, like how it was back in the day. Even I'd say, maybe 10 years ago or so, it's not like that anymore.
You might not even get to shoot the fade to have the run for the backpack. They're going to run for the backpack straight away.
Right.
Even when I was in high school, it was transitioning to like, forget the fade. We're just going to run for the backpack straight away. And that gives us challenges with these kids and their emotional intelligence, their ability to engage in conflict. And when you mention things like I don't even want to say the word because, there's a lot of censorship, but the guys who end up in the situations where they're at the schools, doing this, and the boys who have a situation with a girl that they're dating and they end up, taking her life. This is emotional intelligence because they haven't had the experience of losing and being able to get beyond it. They don't know how to take a loss like a boss. Sports is good for that. You work hard, you practice, you get in the playoffs, and then you lose. And you learn how to deal with that, and your coach takes you through that emotional experience. When you lack a lot of those conditioning experiences and training experiences, it feels like everything's falling apart. And males have to be very durable because unlike females, we're going to get introduced to harsh realities all the time.
Right.
I know a lot of women in their early 20s, they've flown all around the world. How?
Yeah.
Because they can fly around the world for free.
Do whatever.
I know a lot of guys in their early 20s, they've never been outside their city.
Right.
Why? Because they got to earn their way out. Like as a guy, you don't get the free ride in the fancy car.
Right.
Yeah, as a female, you absolutely do. So guys need to be prepared for these harsh realities, and it's nothing to complain about. It just is what it is. Right. Just as you have some great advantages, like you don't have a menstruation you got to deal with. You don't have to carry a child for 9 months. You don't have to walk down an alley and wonder if something's going to happen to you. Those are your advantages. Right. And then you also have some responsibilities that go with that, and we should be pleased to be men and know that we can rise to the occasion to perform at a high level as men.
What do you think that these men need to do if they're in a position where they're saying, as you're speaking, they said, that sounds like me. Right. Like I need to put myself in a position to where I learn what losing feels like and how to overcome, how to rise above, how to become more emotionally intelligent. Like what are some things, what advice would you give to somebody who says, that sounds like me, I want to get myself out of that position and strengthen myself on that level?
Even as an author, no, I would not recommend a book. I want to say that first and foremost, because a lot of people, they always want to pump their book like, oh, go get the black box on Amazon. Like, great, read my book. It's a phenomenal book. I think it's one of the best ever written. But experience is going to be your teacher. You actually have to get your nose bloodied and get punched in the face to learn how to box. Right. You can't read a book and figure this out.
They say move this way, slip.
The book and the pictures, even watching the video is not going to get it done. You got to go get your nose bloodied.
For sure.
And so the first thing I would recommend is experience.
Okay.
And I think for men in general, I think it is important to give somebody a bloody nose and to receive a bloody nose. It's a critical aspect of life. In addition, they say birds of a feather flock together, which is mostly true. And you should ask yourself, well, which feather am I trying to acquire? And based on that, maybe I want to go to Marquett's conference, or maybe I want to go to your Squire program, or I want to attend, whatever you guys have going on at the ranch. Those are the critical experiences, because you're going to be around men who are going to make you raise your level. And you're also going to assume a new level of normalcy, right? Which is to say, you show up with these guys and like everybody's running 5 miles every day, and you're like, word?
Yeah.
And then a week later, it's normal.
Yep.
A week later to run 4 would be ludicrous because everybody's running 5.
Right.
And so that's what you want to put yourself in the midst of. But one thing you have to be certain of is that you can't be comfortable where you are. And the thing that I find is very strange in this era is that I find this weird among males. I expect this among females, but no one's disgusted with mediocrity. No one's disgusted with living in a low way and behaving and thinking in a low way. You're never going to change until you actually are truly disgusted with something. You find it to be utterly unacceptable. I see a lot of social media people like, here's my before and after photo. Here's when I was fat, now I'm fit. I'm happy to say I've never been overweight in my entire life. I've always been deeply disgusted with it. I know that I could never be overweight because I'm still deeply disgusted with it. Now, when you build up a strong aversion to poverty, an aversion to dishonesty, an aversion to being late, an aversion to whatever it is, you're really going to perform, because not only do you need the pull, the thing that's attracting you to it, you also need the push, the thing that's making you say, I don't want to do this.
Right.
And we're too comfortable living in low ways.
Yeah, for sure. So what would you say to the person, let's say because first of all, you live in Sin City, right? And you're surrounded by that kind of behavior, vices, addiction, women, right? All these different things that could get a man in trouble, right? Get him off his path. What do you say to the person that is dealing with that kind of vice, that kind of addiction? They can't seem to get themselves out of it. They understand they need to.
Right.
They know that it's a path of destruction, but they don't really know up from down. They're just kind of existing, right? What do you say to that person who might be in that moment in their life?
So number one, generally speaking, a change in the environment, which is the externality, is not going to change what is internal. So the greatest work we can do is internal. It is a bit of a cheat code if you can change environments. Generally, that will help. And so if you are fortunate enough to have the means or opportunity to change environments, do change environments. But the most important thing is going to be what happens inside. And often drastic action is required, especially when you're in a very bad situation. So anytime you get serious, you're going to get outcomes. The problem is that often we're not disgusted. We're not serious. We don't find it to truly be a problem. We often look outside for help and guidance and like all these theories, like, there's a new diet called keto, there's this, there's paleo, there's raw foods and all this. When at the end of the day, one thing we all know for sure is if you eat less and exercise more, you'll lose weight.
Right.
But for some reason, we don't want to do it because it seems hard. You have to be able to manipulate your own psychology to get you to actually take the action. And, an ounce of action is better than a pound of knowledge, which is why I never recommend the books. I recommend the action. The greatest key to making progress in life is to be realistic about where you are today, be accurate about where you need to end up, to chart the course, and then hyper focus on the one immediate next step. The one immediate next step. And the most important thing is when you're going to do something, you have to be able to identify what's going to help you get it done, leverage those things, and more importantly, identify the things that are going to be a hindrance and remove those things.
I want to take it back to talking about fathers, right? Because obviously the program is about fatherhood. The topic at hand, as far as the Squire program, is helping fathers become better fathers, build a better relationship with their sons, right? And even if they don't have sons, maybe one day they want to be fathers.
Right.
What do you believe the primary job of a father is, whether it's in his household, whether that's on a bigger scale than that? What do you believe a father's role should be in a child's life or in his family's life?
The number one role of a father is to be a trainer. You're training someone so that they can operate without you. Eventually, you're going to have to set them free and let them operate independently. They're going to have to be able to run themselves. They're going to have to be able to run their relationship with their significant other. And then eventually they may have the privilege of running a family with children. And so you have to be able to train them up such that they can do all those things competently without having to rely on you in any way, financially, emotionally, or otherwise. So that's number one, you're a trainer. And so I tend to think of the father role as a leadership concept.
Excuse me.
All you're really trying to do is build a great leader. And the best way to build anything is through experience. And when you build a bond between you and your boy, it's usually going to be because you accomplished or achieved something together. That's why, you know, in those old sitcoms and TV shows, the Wonder Years, things like this, you see the dad, you know, tell his son's about to go out and play with his friends. He's like, hey, come help me work on this old Mustang. And they're trying to, you know, retool the Mustang. And so you're going through a sort of journey that has a specific goal and outcome, and you're going to win together through that process. And that's where the lessons are imparted. And so really you're being a leader, you're teaching leadership, you're conditioning that over time. And the most important thing I really want to emphasize is that it doesn't come from talking and what you tell your boy. It comes from doing and what you show him, and most importantly, what you force him to do. Force him to do. You see, we're in an era where we think everyone has to have options. They're children. They don't know what the best option is. They're children. They know very little. You must force them to do certain things and have certain experiences. Your boy might be scared to go into the boxing ring. That's fine. Get him in there, let him get punched in the face, and then he realizes, I'm still alive.
It's not so bad.
That didn't hurt that much.
Exactly.
Matter of fact, I owe that guy a knuckle sandwich.
Right.
And when you force your kid to have these critical formative experiences, and you engage the training over time, it's going to have the kid end up in the correct place and be a true leader.
A lot of this stuff should be instinctive, but we see increasingly just in the world today, it's not so common. It's not so common nowadays, man. It's crazy. You know, and it's interesting because I take my daughter to gymnastics class every Tuesday. I'm the only dad in there, right?
Word.
And you know, I get it. Maybe a lot of them are working, right? I have the benefit of being able to go and take her myself and be able to watch her grow and learn this new skill. And I notice that the other kids, since they're with their moms, they look around, the teacher's right here, the coach, they run, they're on the other side of the place and they're doing stuff they're not supposed to be doing. They're running around, whatever. And the moms are, hey, I'm going to take your tablet. I'm going to do this, whatever. It doesn't matter what she tells them. They just don't listen. My daughter will see them, probably looks fun goofing around, right? So she looks up at me. I just give it a look like, don't even think about it. I don't have to say it. She's like, all right, I'm chilling. I'm sitting here, right?
Yeah.
And so that's something that was just, I didn't have to learn that. That's something that I feel that men should that's just their role. That's just, it is what it is, right? It's factory installed in us. Now, I want to switch it up just a little bit. We're still talking about the same topic as far as masculinity goes, but as far as the Squire Program specifically, about maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago, I made this video on Instagram. Okay. Right? We're going to heat it up right now. So I made this video on Instagram, and it was at our Texas location. We had a class in April, and Darnell, who is the owner of that location, we're licensed, we're franchising across the entire country. We're out there in Texas, Houston, Texas, for that class. And Darnell, who is African American,
he sounds African American.
Exactly.
Darnell, right?
That'll make sense in a second. Why? I got to make that point. Darnell's African American. I'm African American. The person filming and editing the video and running the whole Instagram page. Darnell gives a speech of he names a list of names, right? Maybe 3 or 4 names, right? They were all white kids who go into schools and, you know what I'm saying, do the thing that we might get flagged for talking about, right? Going in there with a weapon. Now he names another list of names of African American kids who were gunned down by police, right? And he says that the common denominator is that all of these boys grew up without their dad. They grew up without fathers. They grew up in fatherless homes. And people went crazy. Not people, black people went crazy. The algorithm was like sending them our way too. Like those people we ain't ever heard of before. And you know the crazy thing about it was that maybe just like a week before that, we went viral the other way, like in a positive way. We had a video of a black son, his black dad in the ice bath, because that's one of the evolutions that we do. And the fathers help pushing their son through this painful experience. He's in there freezing, right? These are like kids, and so they're cold in this ice bath. And this dad was pushing him like, "Come on, man, you got this, Jaden. Come on, keep pushing, right?" People love that video. 33 million views on YouTube, I believe, on a short, right? They loved it.
Right.
We got all these ton of new black subscribers, followers, all this stuff. So they're loving it. This program's awesome. Then boom, the next week we hit them with that. And they thought we're cooning, we're betraying them, this and that. All these different things on that one video. And so it was a complete opposite effect. Now I want to ask you your opinion. When I explain that video to you, I want to know what your thought is. And then actually, I'll just give you the part one of that question, then I'll ask you the second part afterwards.
There's a lot there. So, number one, generally people, whether they're black, white, male, female, they don't like bad news. They don't like harsh truths or harsh realities. They prefer comforting lies. The woman asks you, how do I look in this dress? She don't really want to hear it. Shorty, you eat too much. She'd rather hear, oh, that looks good on you. Yeah. Whether it's true or not. Right. So that can be expected. That's a part of human nature. When you're looking at the Black American, you're looking at a population that has a unique history wherein they feel like they've been shat on. They've been hurt. They have historical grievances. And strangely, though, none of them have been through enslavement personally. They feel like they have. It feels.
Sure.
It
you
feels
tell them otherwise, they're gonna jump on you.
And my grandmother grew up in the South. She's from Arkansas, and she grew up in a time where there was significant racism. Sure. First thing she taught me is that if you want to be acknowledged, you have to perform 3 times better than a white man. I take this seriously, whether it's true or not. That was my calibration. That is not the calibration of the average black person. When you tell them something that they don't want to hear, they have a number of names for you. And here's the funny thing. You mentioned that you're black, Darnell's black, so-and-so's black. Well, it doesn't really matter. They'll still call you a racist. And the definition of you being a racist or exercising racism or white supremacy upon them is really, did you hurt me? Their pain is understood through that lens. And that's a sad thing. Now, so am I surprised that they felt hurt? Because when you look at illegitimacy, that is the fatherless home, it might be higher now. But last time I checked, which was a while back, it was like 70% of black homes are illegitimate homes led by a single mother. Not to say led, but run by a single mother. One of the things I think is worth looking at, and it kind of goes to the reason why that gentleman probably pointed out that these are single parent homes, probably headed by a woman in the case of the school shooters, as well as the boys who were victim of police involved shootings. It's not to say that these boys were wrong or bad. What I think really the underlying thing is, when you get a proper education and enculturation, I like to talk about people, places, and positions. People, places, and positions. As a man, this is what I teach boys. Are you around the right people? Are you positioning yourself in the right way? Are you in the right place? Probably most of those kids should not have been gunned down. Maybe all of them should not have been gunned down by a police officer. They're not the judge and the jury. They're just supposed to be enforcing the law, right? None of them should have been victim. But certainly they were probably in the wrong place, in the wrong position, maybe around the wrong people. And unfortunate things are more likely to happen to you when you have the wrong P's at hand. Sure. And I think that that's often the case. And one of the worst things about the truth, we don't like to look at an ugly truth. And sadly, when you look into a lot of these situations where there's police involved shootings, it's rarely a guy, and I don't know what your background is, but it's rarely a clean cut guy who has never committed a crime, was a straight A student. Right. It's often when you peel back the layers, you're like, bruh was a drug addict, bruh had a criminal background. Right. Not to say that makes it okay. It doesn't. Sure. It doesn't. But it gives you a greater understanding of like these things are not happening randomly to the squeaky clean people. Right. So the real question should be, fathers, how do you make your son squeaky clean? Yeah. How do you keep your son in the right position or in the right place around the right people? These things are less likely to happen in certain places and around certain people. And when you look a certain way, case in point, why did I show up in a business suit? If the police come in here, if there's a situation between you and I, respectfully, if the police come in here, they're going to go straight to me and say, sir, what happened? Right. Because I'm wearing a suit. Right. And that's why I wear a suit, because I realize despite my education and my background and my income, I'm a black guy. and a black guy looks a lot more respectable in a suit. Every man looks more respectable in a suit,
Right.
but a black guy gets an extra boost in a proper suit.
Right.
And so one thing we have to understand is like, yes, racism is real, but it's not real enough that it can hold you from your goals. And if you are willing to acknowledge the racism that exists, you got to ask yourself, well, how am I going to operate? That's a major fact of being a man is, yes, there are challenges. How do I operate around it? So anyways, in summary, these boys were a victim of some unfortunate things. I think that if they had a proper father in their life, they would have looked different. They would have spoke differently. They would have been positioned around different persons. They would have been unlikely to even be in the situation where that could occur, even though that should not have occurred. And a lot of issues that occur with the police involved shooting might be a situation where when you're engaging with the police, you're not engaging with them in the appropriate way.
Sure.
Which is to say, at some level, you have to be, yes, sir, no, sir.
Absolutely.
Because they have the gun. Not because they deserve that respect, but because they have a gun.
Right.
And I think the same level of emotional immaturity occur with the school shooters because they are clearly persons who couldn't deal with their internal feelings or what they felt was happening to them in the way of bullying.
Right.
And I think that when you speak in this way to any people, they're going to complain. I mean, but certainly there are more populations that seem to be a touch more sensitive.
For sure, man, for sure. And so on that note, I got your opinion on what you think about that specific video, but I want to ask your opinion on why you think the other video went viral, because I got to be honest, I feel like if it was the same scene, but with a different skin color people, it wouldn't have went as viral. I think that was such a big moment because as you just said, the percentage of illegitimacy in African-American households is way higher. And so when you see that, when you see a positive relationship and experience of a black father, a black son, you want to share the hell out of that. You share, look at this girl, check this out. You want to engage with it. It's such a big moment. But I feel like, you know, if they were white or maybe even Hispanic or Asian, maybe it wouldn't have went as crazy.
Right.
Why do you think a video like that went so viral? Do you think it still would have hit the same?
I think it would have still
else?
been viral, but not as much. And we all like positive stories, but there's this idea that you can create reality using the medium of art or film or media. And so there's certain fantasies that we hold and we want it to be real. And so we think we can speak it into existence, or if we can reshare this video and spread this narrative, then that makes it more real and we can change people's beliefs about things, or we can push what we want people to believe, whether it's reflective of reality or not. There are a number of false realities about, like, for example, if you look at the population of the LGBTQ, in reality, meaning like out in the world, according to Gallup data, it's actually quite low. But if you look at the population of LGBTQ represented in film or on Netflix or television shows, it's quite high, disproportionate. And so there's a disconnect between reality and then what's portrayed. And some populations want to portray certain things to create a certain reality, create a certain acceptance or a certain belief. And certainly when you're showing a proper father in the household, in an African-American household, well, that's something that black folks want to promote.
Right.
Now, we're not all deadbeat dads. They want to promote that, and understandably, like, I want to promote that as well. So that's going to get reshared. That's going to be promoted. And they think that that's uplifting the image so that we're not stereotyped. But in reality, it's the data that says 70% of the families lack the father. And so we're concerned about changing the image rather than changing the reality, the substance. And so when we can deal with the substance, we'll have advancement. When we're concerned with the image, we'll have more holidays, right? And what I mean by that is you get a Martin Luther King holiday which is about equality, but if you look at educational measures, income measures, incarceration measures, we're not equal at all. But we got these holidays and the image, and really we have to be concerned with substance. And that really defines the difference between a real man and someone who is less than a man. And I during one of my conferences, I had a session where I taught the difference between negotiation and argument. You know, women, people say they like to argue. And you can argue with them, but you really want to win the negotiation. Negotiation is more so a business term, which is about who gets what when the dust settles.
Right.
Who got the goods, who got the money. That's the negotiation. The argument is the war of words. And so you have to be concerned with the substance of things and what is actually moving the needle. And that's what we have to focus the people on, is moving the needle. That's what a great leader does. That's what a CEO does. He says, hey, our bottom line is economic. Did the dollars come in? If the dollars ain't came in, somebody needs to get fired, somebody needs to get replaced.
Right.
And we're doing it based on what's real.
Let me ask you this last question. I want you to talk to, the mothers that are watching this. It's not as high of a percentage as far as the fathers go,
Sure.
or men. Nonetheless, a very important part of what we do, because unfortunately, like we just talked about, there are a lot of households that don't have the fathers in there. We get Instagram messages and emails all day long about, hey, I don't have, my son's dad is not in his life. Can he still come to this program? Can you still teach him? Can you mentor him? Of course we can. So I want you to talk to that percentage, that the single moms out there maybe watching this, of what they can do as far as helping their son, become a stronger, more emotionally intelligent man, because they obviously can't teach them how to be a man because they're not men. What can they do to help their sons succeed better?
I think one of the biggest follies that I've observed, and shout out to the single mothers who watch, because those are the ones who are seeking the correct source, right? Those are the ones who want to put their kid in position. They have the right mindset,
right,
and they're receptive to doing things better. So that's a phenomenal woman there. What I've observed in the single mother that I think has, really been most disheartening, there's some things you can teach, but I think what really is a detriment to the child, the male child, is if you engage him in a way that's demeaning to the male. One thing that I was very thankful of is that if there was no senior male at my table, my grandmother would have me sit at the head of the table, position me in the appropriate place in preparation for being the head of a household. Talk to me and tell me I'm the man of the house, even if I'm 8 years old, because I am. There's no one else around. It's me.
Right.
And preparing your son with that level of respect, and also making sure that you don't degrade and demean him. I saw a video on TikTok of a mother who was angry at her son. He was looked like he was about 15, 16. And she was yelling and cursing at him and telling him that she was going to whoop him or beat him. And I was thinking, well, number one, if you were to try, that probably is going to be a long day for the both of you, because you're about equally matched at this point.
Right.
A 13, 14, 15-year-old boy is a strong boy, and you're still a woman. But even to attempt to engage corporal punishment with your son when he's past the age of 11 is degrading to a male. To have a female try to lay her hands on him, he's 11 years old, because he's coming into manhood.
Right.
That's not proper. And so it's important as a woman who might experience emotionalism to be able to step back and ask yourself, what are the proper ways to engage with this child, this male child? And if I'm finding that my abilities are being exceeded, how can I get someone or some organization in position that can give him proper discipline? And you need to do that immediately.
Yeah.
As soon as you notice it's a problem or this boy is beyond your control, you need to do that immediately, because you don't want to be in a position to where either you degrade him, you demean him as a male growing into a man, or you ruin your relationship and sour it such that he doesn't respect and trust you.
Right.
So that's my greatest piece of advice, because that's where I see a lot of single moms going wrong.
Right.
In terms of where they're going right is when they're seeking help, when they're being a good listener, and when they're putting him in the positions that he needs to be in. Boys need to be on teams. Boys need to be taking risks. Boys need to be encouraged to do things that make them uncomfortable. And I'll just give one quick anecdote. As I had a single mother, and I also had a stepfather. And when I wanted to learn how to drive when I was probably 15 years old, my mom was like, no, you have to wait, it's dangerous, and all of these things that make sense. Women say things that make sense.
Right.
And she said a bunch of things that made sense. My stepfather was there. He was like, grab the keys. And then we go out and men, sometimes we accidentally get ourselves killed because, we don't know any better. He drives me on the busiest street in LA. We almost both got killed. But there is a masculine way to do things, and there's a man's way to do things, and you cannot condition your boy to do things in a womanly way.
Right.
Which is hesitancy, constant questioning, uncertainty, fear, that is not manly, and you will make your child a very weak beta male doing that. I was thankful that my stepfather almost got both of us killed, because it taught me that sometimes you have to leap before you look, especially as a man. It helped me be an entrepreneur, helped me take risks, the risks that made me tremendous amounts of money. So that is critical. And one thing, the nature of the male and female with regards to risk taking is radically different. If you, like in Las Vegas, it's a great observation of human nature. If you look at the gaming tables, blackjack, roulette, craps, all these things, it's overwhelmingly male. Right. Why? One, because males are fools, but two, because males are inclined to risk. And so they're comfortable risking. Whereas you talk to a woman, she's like, I ain't going to lose my money. I'm trying to save my money.
Exactly.
Which is smart. That's why we're good together. But what you don't want to do is make your son a duplicate of you as a woman.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it, man. This is such a, first of all, man, this is such an awesome first guest to have. Like this was an amazing experience for me, myself. Like I said, because I grew up in a household without my dad, and it was just me and my mom. I was always looking outwards for different people, men, to emulate and aspire to be more like. You obviously being articulate, a professional, well educated. A lot of different qualities, and boxing too. Like I love boxing. I've been a boxer for like 10 plus years.
Wow.
So a lot of different qualities that you had where I was like, man, that's dope. Like I love, seeing people like that, men like that I can look up to and try and be more like, and much less like the other people, the other guys, right? And so this is a big moment for me. I know there's a lot of value to the audience. Where can they find you if someone wants to learn more about you, Marquett, how they can support your businesses, more of your knowledge, more of your game, your wisdom? Where can they find you?
Thank you. So you can find me on Instagram at Marquett Davon. You can find me on YouTube at The Saint and the Sinner, or The Saint. And got a lot of free content out there. I also have conferences on a regular basis. I guess I shouldn't say a regular basis. Maybe nowadays once a year. I'm busy. And those are great opportunities for the fathers to come to, for the sons to come to.
Nice.
All men. I know you guys do awesome stuff. You have both genders there, which is awesome. Ours are all men. And we also have a separate section called the Lady Saints, and that's all women. And so, we're very much gender specific with the education, but those are places that they can reach us. And it's been a pleasure to have this time with you and hear about what you guys are doing, which is really impressive. And one last note I want to add is, especially for the boys listening and for the mothers as well, to tell the boys is that you're growing up just fine. You're growing up the right way. Everything's going to work out for you. Because a boy without a father is going to worry. And you need to instill the confidence that you're a boy, you're going to grow up into a man fairly naturally. That's kind of the natural progression. Right. And so I think that's an important thing to emphasize, is that you're growing up just fine and you're going to make it.
There we go. I love it, man. I appreciate it. Marquett, thanks a lot, man. This is absolute pleasure. I appreciate you. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Like I said, go ahead and follow Marquett, subscribe to his YouTube channel, get some more game for you, man. One more time, peace to the Saints.
Peace to
I'll
the
see you guys
Saints.
next time. Thanks for tuning in.